And to fit in as much of these clips as we possibly can in 25 minutes, here's one of our favorite clips of Chris Hedges on the Empire of Illusion and the crucial first step of shutting out the poison and creating a new narrative.
It's even if you don't agree with the war on terror, as soon as you use the phrase the war on terror, you're limited in terms of your possibilities of self-expression, of creating another narrative. And that's why I don't own a television. And I work as hard as I can to distance myself from the cant of popular culture so that I can speak in my own language, not the one they give me. And that requires reading. I mean, what is most frightening about American society is that we are shifting from a print-based culture to an image-based culture. And we are confusing how we are made to feel with knowledge, confusing propaganda with ideology. And totalitarian societies are image-based societies, built around image and spectacle. Consciously shutting out the poison is a really important first step.
There you go. So,
yeah,
all right, man.
Exactly.
Rapid fire. What clip do you want to hear next?
I don't know. They're all so good, man.
There's
you
two.
have
What's that?
real quick though, the notion of shutting out the poison, as I say so often, is just the whole image of spectacle and things. It's self-deluding, and if people have the capacity to just turn the television off and to not consume the he said she said of the corporate propaganda, the whole new world opens up. And it's just, you see the world in a different light, and it really is a 180-degree turn in terms of your understanding of what's happening. John Pilger sounds good.
Okay, we'll go to John Pilger next. I grabbed this one. This is Tom Shadyac. He's a movie director. Directed some of my personal favorite movies of all time: Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Nutty Professor. He did Bruce Almighty. His last movie was a documentary called I Am, one of my favorite movies of all time. And I strongly suggest you watch the movie I Am. And actually, I got a personal shout out from Tom Shadyac when Tom Hartman interviewed him. That was really cool. Back when I was producing there. Here is what Tom Shadyac, his thoughts. This was from a conversation on the Tavis Smiley program. This is very important too.
Well, the hope is we can begin as a society to have a conversation as to why things are actually the way they are. You know, we have school shootings, we have an economy that is working very well for some, but for many it is not. We have all these problems, genocides and wars, and I think of it as symptoms. They're all symptoms of something that Martin Luther King saw, that Gandhi saw, that Jesus saw. It's this chasm, this moral chasm, you know, that we have. We have technological growth that's crazy, off the chart population growth, pollution, but our moral revolution has yet to come. And so I want people to have that conversation, to say that there's a moral reason why we're having these problems.
Exactly.
We're outside of how things work. And morality is practical. It's in the laws of life. And if we can have that conversation, if we can talk about the mental illness that's in all of us, not just in those who pick up guns and go into school, how we all participate in that winner-take-all scenario. That's just a winner-taking-all in a very abhorrent way, but it's still inside of our philosophy.
Do you get that? What if we had a moral conversation? That's great.
And he's right, though. I mean, the fundamental understanding that everything you hear on the nightly news and all this other crap are merely symptoms of a much larger issue. I think you become less overwhelmed by the bombardment of all these symptoms and really start to grasp the actual disease itself. And then you can actually begin to fight it.
Scott, you mentioned you want to hear some John Pilger. We did an episode on Filter Free Radio a long time ago on this speech from John Pilger. This came, actually, we did this show around January 19th in 2012. But this actual conversation that, the speech that John Pilger gave us from 2009, I think, right?
Yeah, it was, I think, July 4th, 2009. It was at Socialism Now, just following, 6 months after Obama was inaugurated in office. And it was just, he's an Australian journalist. He was actually in the kitchen when Sirhan shot Bobby Kennedy. Wow. So he's got a long history of covering wars and covering atrocities, and he's a really good journalist.
I didn't realize that. Here's one of my favorite clips from that conversation. Per request of Skeptical Scott, here's John Pilger.
Yes, a lot of good people mobilized for Obama. But what did they demand of him? Working to elect a Democratic presidential candidate may seem like activism, but it isn't. Activism doesn't give up. Activism doesn't fall silent. Activism doesn't rely on the opiate of hope. Woody Allen once said, "I felt a lot better when I gave up hope."
Yeah.
I like that.
Gave up passively hoping.
I love that. That is such a good one. Yeah, because it's the notion of sitting in your armchair and hoping you'll win the lottery or hoping that something will happen. And you have to make things happen. Hope has to have action. Hope is a goal with an action behind it. Otherwise, it's just magical thinking.
And too often, people focus on elections and electoral politics and the inside game, and say, that should be our primary focus. I suggest that we focus on social movements, an outside game, because when the people lead, the leaders will follow. And if we want real hope and change, it's up to us to put up first. And going back to comedy, another stand-up comic who I enjoy and is apropos of this conversation, Bill Hicks. This is Bill Hicks on politics and the electoral process.
There's no fucking hope in that guy. They're all the same. I'll show you politics in America. Here it is, right here. I think the puppet on the right shares my beliefs. I think the puppet on the left is more to my liking. Hey, wait a minute. There's one guy holding up both puppets. Shut up. Go back to bed, America. Your government is in control. Here's Love Connection. Watch this and get fat and stupid. By the way, keep drinking beer, you fucking morons. Bum, bum, ba-na.
The theme song is Sanford and Son.
I love
it.
Sanford Son. So
Oh, yeah.
anyways, and I've got one more. Another favorite stand-up comedian of mine is Christopher Titus, and as of recently, he's becoming more. His material's becoming more
Edgy.
Edgy, right? Here is one of my favorite clips from his stand-up called "Never-lution."
I'm tired of being afraid. For 10 years since 9/11, we've been afraid. It's over. It's time to take our country back for us. Take America back for us. It's time for revolution. Are you guys ready? Yeah, right. Revolution! Hold on, what day? Oh, yeah, no, Monday's bad.
Yeah, Monday. Not
Now
bad.
my kid has a soccer thing, and it's my TiVo catch-up night. So I'll tell you, why don't you text me some alternative revolution days, and I will have my assistant call you. Everybody wants revolution. No one's willing to pack a lunch.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Everyone wants change, but no one willing to change what they're doing to make that change happen.
Yeah. It does start in the mind. That's the whole Gil Scott-Heron, when he said the revolution will not be televised, what he meant was because the revolution is in your mind.
Right.
And it has to come from within. And all revolutions are inherently individual. I mean, it's the decision you make, or a decision that I made personally to cut myself off from the corporate state as much as I possibly can. And then that entails growing my own food, shopping in the local nonprofit co-op. It starts with food, of course, because it's the easiest. I think, well, not the easiest, but it's one of the most fundamental things. And then, of course, like we talked earlier about Dr. Bronner's soaps. I do buy Dr. Bronner's soaps. There's actually a lady at my farmer's market.
My bad for not
locally-
knowing what that was, by the way.
I didn't actually, honestly, either until I started shopping at the co-op. You can actually buy it at Trader Joe's. Dare I mention a national or international chain? But the point is that you get the petrochemical industry out of your body.
Sure.
Because soaps and all these lotions and sodium lauryl, the chemicals, if you actually try to read the back of it and understand what those chemicals were, you realize that most of them are petrochemicals.
Yeah.
And there is no way to know if they're poisoning you or not.
There was news a few weeks ago about the controversy behind should women be getting mammograms? Should they not be getting mammograms? Does it make a difference? And the anchor of the newscast I was watching said something to the effect of, why don't we look at the causes of breast cancer rather than trying to treat the symptoms? Let's treat the causes. And I'm saying, it's like, how often do you put all these chemicals and all this stuff on your skin, in your hair, this and that? It's like anyone stop to think maybe I shouldn't be putting all these chemicals and crap onto my body, into my body, right? Just saying.
Yeah, you wonder where cancer comes from? It's you're consuming it every day in various forms, whether it's genetically modified corn that's being fed to the chickens that you're eating that are just
Now, 1 in
it's
2 people get cancer. 1 in 2, 50%.
Yeah, and in 1955 it was 1 in 17.
You do the math.
Right, and so it's literally like if you see, there's a video I put on our website called Homotoxic Us, and it's basically just it's a French-Canadian documentary where the woman draws blood and they do tests on her blood, and she's got all these heavy metals in her system, but she's healthy, and they're like, well, what are you worried about? And she's like, well, where do all these things come from?
Right.
Like, oh no, they're at quote-unquote safe levels.
Right.
It really comes down to the fact that, and the same is true, there's a good movie called Chemiracle, as in chemical and miracle mixed together, where and again, a Canadian, I think some of the best documentaries in Canada, and it's all on Netflix. The Canadian family, or YouTube, Canadian family decides to cut themselves off from the petrochemical industry and what that means and what they have to do it. And it's just remarkable, the struggle to cleanse their body of all these daily toxins that they put in. And it's, from cleaning supplies to soaps to shampoos to what they eat, et cetera. It's amazing.
And let that be a call for you. If you've been personally affected by cancer, and a lot of people have, that is maybe your trigger event to get active. Maybe your cause is to do something about the causes of cancer. If we
I don't want to die of cancer. So
I don't want to die of cancer either.
Right.
And just sitting back and doing nothing about it, passively hoping, is a big problem. Here is a clip of Saul Alinsky and what he thinks about people who just sit back and hope about things.
Somebody who goes off in a monastery and starts praying for the salvation of mankind and doesn't do a damn thing but sits there and prays, I think that when that guy comes up for judgment, that the judge is going to sit there and say, why, you cruddy bastard.
You have to get active. If you care about something, you need to make a difference and show up. And when you're thinking about that, there are a couple of questions that you might want to ask yourself. Here's another one of my favorite clips. This is author Derek Jensen on 4 questions you should ask yourself.
What do you love? What are your gifts? And what is the largest, most pressing problem that you can help to solve using the gifts that are unique to you in all the universe? What does your land base need to survive? And are you willing to do it?
And the most important one at the end is, are you willing to do it?
Are you willing to do it?
Are you going to do it?
Requires radically changing your lifestyle, and you can do it piece by piece. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It just starts by not eating red meat, or not drinking corn syrup, not drinking calories. Michael Pollan is a very good, his Food Rules and Eater's Manual, his book Cooked, his other books, The Omnivore's Dilemma, really provide a guide and at least a fundamental questioning of what it is we're putting in our bodies on a daily basis. And it's a really good place to start, I think.
Yep. And it's something that gives me hope when I see people participating and showing up and engaging and getting active, being the change that we want to see. That is how we make a difference, when we be the change. Here's a conversation.
I was going to say, that's the Derek Jensen quote we played a few while back, the whole minute long one where he says, if you don't, to be powerless, if you accept that you're powerless, you'll go crazy. You have to take some power. And so to take some power, some control over your life when you feel powerless is very important, and you can start by doing these little things.
You mean this clip?
Abused children oftentimes assume responsibility for the abuse that's done to them. If I would have just cleaned the dishes well enough, my father wouldn't have hit me. If I would have just parked the car here instead of here. And that's crucial when you're powerless. When you're absolutely powerless, you have to take on some power. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself insane. So to start going, I'm responsible for deforestation because I use toilet paper, is an acknowledgement of my powerlessness in the larger scheme of things. But that's really dangerous, because the truth is, we do have power, And we are culpable for something far greater than using toilet paper, which is for not stopping Weyerhaeuser. That's our responsibility, for not shutting down the whole system. My responsibility for global warming is not because I drive a car, having been born into car culture. My responsibility is for not shutting down car culture as a whole, which is much more serious.
It is much more serious.
Yeah, when you look at the much larger picture, I mean, day to day driving to and from work, it's a nightmare, from potholes to traffic to et cetera to fumes, and it's annoying. And you think, oh God, if we only had better roads, if we only had better this, that, and the other. No, cars are the problem. If we had better mass transit that was solar electric based, clean mass transit, we wouldn't need the fossil fuel industry as much. And it's a really much larger understanding of what's happening.
And keyword there, fossil, as in the fossil fuel industry. Fossil, as in something that's really old, something that's really outdated, and something that should be locked up in a museum for only us to look at and reminisce on what used to be as we progress forward. Don't you love that? Okay, we are rapidly firing through some of our favorite clips of all sorts of different people, authors, activists, visionaries, and the like, to kind of explain. Every time we fill in for Nicole Sandler, we get one person that emails us or tweets us, which happened yesterday, that said, wow, I really liked your guys filling in. You guys did a great job. We did okay. But I've never heard of you before. Where do you broadcast? What do you talk about? What is your mission statement, right? Filterfreeradio.com. We're live Mondays right here on radioornot.com, Monday evenings. And we try to talk about what we're talking about right now. And everything from activism to active hope to mobilizing the people, to changing the status quo, to being the difference.
I think understanding what's really going on is a really important first step.
Right. You can check out our highlights page, which has lots of cool things that Scott and I have done in the last 2.5 years as while we've been doing Filter Free Radio and continue to. Scott has interviewed Scott has interviewed Chris Hedges. That is on the highlights page. I got to interview Amy Goodman. I know we play Democracy Now! Stuff all the time, and a lot of folks might not have ever heard this. Here is my 30-second interview of Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! And why it is important for what we are doing and why we need to continue doing what we're doing.
And your advice for young independent activists and broadcasters and journalists, what should we be focusing on our effort?
Continue to be good journalists, to go to where the silence is. We are not a party to the parties. We're supposed to be holding those in power accountable. There's a reason why our profession, journalism, is the only one explicitly protected by the U.S. Constitution, because we're supposed to be the check and balance on power.
Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you go. You want to interview Amy Goodman, where she's got a line of 100 people behind you? You get 30 seconds. Amy, what should I be doing? Do what you're doing. Okay, great.
Well, no,
I just need some confirmation, please.
Is to go to the silence. And that's it's always asking, what am I not being told here? The 80-20 rule. You're told 80% of the truth, and then the 20% that you're not told is completely contradictory to the other 80%, right?
Right. And speaking of silence, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. In other words, we have to speak up. Here is the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., another one of my favorite clips.
The time has come for America to hear the truth, that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a period of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. There comes a time when silence is betrayal. The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the mission to which they call us is a most difficult one. Even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. Nor does the human spirit move without great difficulty against all the apathy of conformist thought within one's own bosom.
I love it. Scott, we've got like 5 minutes left and probably enough time for one or two more very important clips. So I'm going to play my...
You got to have a Noam Chomsky and a Howard Zinn in there somewhere.
Okay, Noam Chomsky coming up. What gives Noam Chomsky hope? This is what gives Noam Chomsky hope.
Are now recognized in ways they weren't then. So a lot of success. But I think the basic reason is just very simple. You have two choices. You can say, look, everything's hopeless, so I'm not going to do anything, and help guarantee that the worst will happen. Or you can say, well, things are tough, but they've been worse before, and if we get engaged, maybe we can carry things forward. Between those two choices, there's no real choice.
That's what gives Noam Chomsky hope. And what choice do you have? The choices are either do nothing and ensure the worst is going to happen, or get active and give us a chance. You don't have a choice. That's what gives him hope. Activism. Okay, here's my last clip. The last clip I'm going to play, my favorite clip, and this is going to totally throw you a curveball here. Tell me if you know where this is from.
I can talk. I can walk.
Yes, Pinocchio. I've given you life.
Pay attention.
Because tonight, Geppetto wished for a real boy.
A real boy.
Am I a real boy?
No, Pinocchio. To make Geppetto's wish come true will be entirely up to you.
Up to me?
Prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish, and someday you will be a real boy.
A real boy?
A real boy.
That won't be easy. You must learn to choose between right and wrong.
Right and wrong? But how will I know?
Probably no. Your conscience will tell you.
What are conscience?
What is a conscience?
I'll tell you. A conscience is that still, small voice that people won't listen to. That's just the trouble with the world today.
Are you my conscience?
Who, me?
Would you like to be Pinocchio's conscience?
Well,
Very well.
But, don't it get a badge or something?
Well, we'll see.
You mean maybe it will?
I shouldn't wonder.
Make it a gold one?
Maybe.
Now listen to this.
Remember, Pinocchio, be a good boy, and always let your conscience be your guide.
All right, Disney, don't sue me. The point is let your conscience be your guide. All right, Scott, you get one clip. What do you want to... Wait, I know.
I'm totally uncomfortable with you playing that, by the way. I'm like, oh, God. Copyright violations, whatever.
Big whoop.
Yeah.
Actually,
Anyway,
that's edited. There's different voices in it. That's not the original Disney thing. So if they want to try to sue us, it ain't going to happen. But anyways.
Not the money anyway. Have you got any Howard Zinn? I mean, we can't go without him, right?
Yeah, and this is a crucial shift of a current paradigm into what we need to be realizing, that the government's interests and our interests are not necessarily the same.
One of the things we might learn from history, and this is a very, very important conclusion to get from the long history of this country, is that the government's interests are not necessarily the same as ours. In fact, are rarely the same as ours. Because if you think that the government's interests are the same as yours, then you think, well, if something is going wrong, it must be that they made a mistake because they really care about us. They don't care about us.
What?
The government does not care about its own soldiers. It would not be taking the wealth of this country and squandering it on $500 billion this year on a military budget. That's a hard thing to grasp, that the government does not have the same interest as us. It's hard to grasp because we grow up in a culture where the language of the culture predisposes us to think, yes, we have a common interest. The Constitution starts off in a preamble, we, the people of the United States, establishes. It wasn't we, the people, who established the Constitution. It was 55 rich white men who established the Constitution.
I wish we had more time to play more Howard Zinn, but we're flat out of time.
Yeah.
Scott, 30 seconds, man. What should folks know before we head out to the weekend?
Well, to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair inevitable. And that means the challenging what your common beliefs are and asking why. Ask why for everything. Do not take anything for granted or for face value, and dig and dig and dig. Because I think when you dig deeper and you can just ask the question why, like you were a 3-year-old, why, you get down to the heart of the matter and you really start to have a paradigm shift, and your understanding of what is going on will turn 180 degrees.
And that's exactly what we need. We need some sort of change, unless you like the status quo.